everyone, this is Catherine O'Connell and welcome to Lawyer on Air. If you are looking for inspirational stories about women in law, then this is the podcast for you. Join me and my lawyer ladies as we enjoy a glass of wine after a hard day at work and talk about the world of women in law. It's my passion to share stories of amazing legal ladies who are working as in-house legal counsel, who have law firm roles, who are leading on boards, and who are doing law differently. From time to time, I will also invite special guests on the show to share their insights on legal recruiting and tips for getting hired as a successful lawyer in Japan. I hope you will enjoy getting to know these amazing women who I am so proud to share a profession with. I'm glad you're here and I hope you enjoy the show. Hi everyone, welcome to another episode of the Lawyer on Air podcast. In this episode I share with you another diverse story of a woman lawyer working with Japan. I'm Catherine, the host of the show. I'm a lawyer based in Tokyo for more than 20 years and I love helping unlock the wisdom of the stories that women lawyers never tell. What I've learned so far about life that has helped my career in law is be sincere with your friends and other people and be honest with yourself. Those are the words of my guest today, Ako Shimada. Ako is Vice President, General Counsel and Corporate Secretary of Ushio America Inc., located in Cypress, California, and she's also General Counsel of Ushio Europe BV in the Netherlands. She received her bachelor's degree in psychology from Northwestern University and a Juris Doctor degree from Loyola University Chicago School of Law. Ako is also an independent outside director for Fujitech, a publicly traded manufacturer of elevators and escalators headquartered in Japan with global operations. You can check out Ako's full bio in the show notes. On this episode, Ako shares with us her journey to owning her Japanese DNA and how it has transformed her life to be an authentic person to her family, her colleagues, and especially to herself. She also shares her tips on preparing for board roles, the importance of genuine networking that is based on giving with zero expectations of receiving something in return. And we hear about her extraordinary story of the position she has on the board of Fujitech, where she was nominated by an activist company. And Ako also shares her favorite authors, what and who she would take to a desert island, something you don't know about her, and other fun facts. Let's get into it. Hello, Ako, and welcome to the show.
Hi, Catherine. Thank you for inviting me.
Great to have you here. Now, I know you're not in Japan and you're in the States. So if we were meeting up in person, where would we be? Do you have a favorite restaurant, wine bar, or somewhere you love to go? And what would you choose from the beverage menu?
Okay, so my favorite place in Tokyo is this French-Japanese fusion restaurant called Effervescence. And I don't know how to pronounce it in French because I don't speak French, but in Japanese it's called L'Effervescence. And it's in Nishiazabu and it's a course menu. And everything is wonderful. A friend of mine invited me to that restaurant last year and I was just blown away. It was great. And I would probably have a couple glasses of Sancerre there.
Oh, lovely. Wow, you gave a Japanese restaurant and it's actually in my neighborhood.
Oh,
Yeah. And also, I know that restaurant by reputation. One of my great friends, Bob, he loves that restaurant and I have not even been there. So I'm going to have to make a promise to Bob and to you to go there and experience it. Thank you for saying that. It's really, I don't know, let somebody who can speak French correct us, but l'effervescence or perhaps
something like that.
maybe that's a guess from my side. Thank you
Right.
for the reminder. Wow, that's great. So let's get into the episode with you today. Thank you so much again for coming on the show. I wanted to go into your early days. So if you think back to when you were maybe a child or growing up as an early adult years, what kinds of things were you thinking about then as your career or that you were just dreaming about to do in the future?
Yes. So growing up, I really didn't have a clear idea of what I wanted to be when I grew up. But my parents always encouraged me to study and speak English. So ever since I was like 5 or 6 years old, I went to one English conversation school or another. So I was always interested in English and also American culture. And in high school, I decided to do a summer program through AFS, American Field Service. So that was like my first experience actually being outside of Japan. Now I was second year in high school. And that really shaped my future because before then, I was thinking about going to a Japanese university to study English. But spending a summer in Minneapolis, Minnesota, being exposed to students from all over the world because it was a program for high school and college kids from all over the world, I thought I should rather come to the US and go to an American university and study something using English.
Amazing. That
Yeah.
changed your life, didn't it? Because you
Well,
spent
yeah,
the rest of your years basically in the USA.
right. So that's when I decided to change my direction. So rather than studying for college entrance exams in Japan, I started studying for the SAT and also TOEFL, Test of English as a Foreign Language. And then I had a tutor who was an English tutor who was an adjunct professor at the Yokohama City University, which was right next to my high school. I went to a public school throughout my life in Japan. So then he helped me choose the universities I should apply to. I was at that time interested in becoming a journalist, newscaster, like CNN headline news.
Whoa, that's
I-
cool. Yeah, very cool.
right. So he helped me select universities that had a very good journalism program. So I applied to a bunch of public schools because my parents wouldn't be able to afford private schools. So I applied to a bunch of public universities in the US, and I was accepted to my first choice, which was the University of North Carolina in Chapel Hill. So that's where I went to study journalism.
Right, interesting. And I mean, all this time, America's like fitting you. You're enjoying it. You didn't have any feelings that, oh, I made the wrong decision. It sounds to me like it was really the path you were meant to take. It fitted you.
Yes, and I was really excited to leave my hometown, Yokohama, and being alone in America. Probably I was just young and ignorant, but I was not worried at all. So I enjoyed being at the UNC and started studying journalism. But I came to realize that I really didn't appreciate the aspect of, journalism asking pretty intrusive questions, right, to report like robbery or some incidents. It was part of my journalism class to go to the city hall and interview some politicians or call a crime victim, and it was just too much for me. So I decided to change my major to study psychology instead. That's completely different.
Whoa, okay. So you went into psychology.
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
what happened next?
So yeah, no, it was really interesting, and I did really well because I was so interested in different aspects of psychology, and I had a choice of going to a graduate school to get a master's or a PhD. But then I realized it's probably not practical to get master's or PhD just to try to become a researcher or a university professor. And then it came to me, maybe I should go to law school. I speak Japanese and English, and maybe I could become an international deal lawyer or something. So that's how I decided to go to law school.
Wow, so it just came up for you. You thought, looking through the options, maybe law's for me.
Right, right. Yep.
Oh, and that teacher or the professor you knew back in Yokohama
hmm
didn't help you there. It kind of came up for you yourself.
Yeah, I just came up
Oh,
with that idea myself. At that time, I was not really in touch with him. That's back in the early 1990s, right? So you didn't have the the
Not like
emails or
now.
texting or anything like that. So like everything was like international calls and letters, right?
Right, exactly. International
Right.
calls, letters, or maybe even faxes. Oh my goodness.
Exactly.
Wow, so you studied law and you graduated, and then did you take up a law position?
Right. So family circumstances moved me to Southern California. So I went to actually Loyola University Chicago Law School in Chicago, but I took the California bar exam
Right,
and
okay.
I was licensed as a California lawyer. And I ended up getting a litigation associate position. And I thought that I would become a transactional lawyer, but the job market was such that nothing in corporate side was available. So I became a litigation lawyer. And it was quite unexpected.
Tell me about that. It was quite unexpected, and I'm sure you encountered some challenges and experiences through that time. Tell us a bit more
Right.
about that.
Right. I worked at three different firms in my private practice days. The first firm that specialized in insurance coverage litigation. So we did a lot of work for insurers. And so I spent a lot of time doing discovery, going through documents, writing coverage opinions, and some litigation experience, but not much. And then I moved to a global firm where I spent 4 years. That's where I got very good experience actually doing litigation work, taking depositions, even went to Japan to take depositions. It was an Osaka U.S. consulate's office. And
Yes, well,
the-
US, you have to take the depositions at the embassy or the consulate here. That's
right.
right. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So it was a fantastic experience, great law firm, but unfortunately, just like any other global firms, they went bankrupt after like 150 years of history and dozens of offices all over the world. So after that, I moved to a regional firm here in Southern California. And I had some challenges there. It was quite different from that international firm where I was at, where I really enjoyed to work. It was very competitive and not very diverse. And that's where I got some challenging experiences. I felt like I was not well integrated and it was very competitive. So I felt like I had to fit into the firm's culture, kind of male dominated, very aggressive environment, and that's not who I am. But coming from Japan, where you have tight social norms and there's a pressure to conform, I thought I should I should act like them, but that didn't go too well.
Right. So you tried to fit in and be more like them. And goodness me, this happens to a lot of us because we try to adjust who we actually are to fit in. And actually finding out later that being different is our gem. It's, our secret sauce, but we don't know at the time and we feel pressured.
Right. Yeah. And then, so I tried really hard. It's not easy to be a litigator as a non-native speaker, because you grow up speaking another language and you learn English as a second language. But you have to be perfect. Like, taking depositions, it makes a difference if you use the article or, definite article the, right? Something like that.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. So I had to be always perfect, and then my writing had to be perfect. So it was challenging and stressful, and I tried really hard, but it seems like maybe it could be my approach too. I was not, that aggressive, although I was assertive. So it seems like it didn't satisfy some of the partners there, and in like performance reviews, it was almost implied maybe I shouldn't focus on litigation, but do like more trademark prosecution or something else. And that was really hard for me to get that type of criticism.
Yeah, it's hard when they give you criticism, but they say do something else, but they don't actually give you the bridge to help you
Right.
in between. And I think this sort of relates to, it makes me again come up this idea or this previous experience I had when I talked about leadership in a podcast. And I know you listen to this
Yes.
podcast
Yeah, I did.
where there's not one form of being a litigator, there's not one form of being a leader. And we have this kind of black and white rather than there being gray in between on that spectrum.
Right. Yeah.
Right, but I get your feeling there. You had to be perfect because a word difference could make a difference in what the person who's giving you the deposition could say.
So yeah, it was difficult, but then I took their criticism. I worked really hard to, like write like these partners. Then I had my first daughter, and then I just came to realize it was not sustainable being a senior associate at that time and trying to drum up business and being perfect, right, out there, like doing business development. So I decided to look for an in-house position. That's where I joined a healthcare company.
Before we jump to in-house, is there anything there that, your learnings or lessons or insights from that time when you were in private practice and you were trying to fit in? And as you say, this word perfect, it can
Mhm.
really destroy us when we think we have to be that, or we're encouraged to maybe do something that makes us feel like we have to be perfect. What could you say there about that experience overall now that you're looking back on it in that rearview mirror?
I guess it's important for us to be kind of objective and see. You need to kind of give yourself a pat on your shoulder. What do you have accomplished so far? And don't internalize people's criticism so much. Of course, it's good to accept and then try, to improve, but it's not a good idea to internalize too much because it could end up becoming your narrative about who you are. And then that could lead to imposter syndrome, right? Like we women tend to internalize and not complain, and that can lead to a disaster. So it's always a good idea to be objective and then kind of think about what you have accomplished and know yourself. It's so important to know who you are, where you come from, and what, like your origin, how it has shaped you.
I really love those reflections about being objective, right? Standing outside of yourself and
Yes.
giving yourself a pat on the back that you've accomplished things and not internalizing those criticisms.
Right.
And I think the point is there that some criticisms are feedback and it might be information for us and not entirely 100% true, but also not entirely 100% incorrect. There's usually a sort of smidgen, an ounce of accuracy in that opinion that you've been given, right?
Right. Because the criticism comes from a person who has a different background and experience. So, of course, those inform his or her opinions about you. And if you ask somebody else, that somebody else could have a completely different opinion about your capabilities, right? So it's just always important to take that into consideration and not to like take it as like 100% truth.
Absolutely. But I'm also thinking too back to when you did psychology and journalism. I think that also helped you in this career to be a litigator as well. So those previous experiences you had studying didn't actually waste your time. They were really
No,
helpful for you as well, right?
right. It's
Mm.
like it's almost just become my hobby to kind of analyze like when there's a nasty person, I think about like what the childhood kind of childhood that he or she must have had, right?
Yeah, I agree with you. And often it comes from a lack of love. Most people who are angry have not had love experienced, I suppose. But yeah, we could talk about that forever. But let's indeed pivot to your in-house years around, I think maybe 10 years after private practice, you maneuvered into in-house roles.
Right, almost 10 years. So I went in-house at a healthcare company where I spent 6 years focused on healthcare regulatory work. And it really suited me well at that time because I had my first child and she was only one. And then 4 years later, I had my second child, daughters. I have two daughters who are teenagers now. So it was very predictable. I go into the office at the same time and leave at the same time. I really didn't have to work on weekends, and it was very predictable work. But eventually, I came to realize that I really didn't want to pigeonhole into that one aspect of healthcare law, and probably I should look for a Japanese company where I could take advantage of my background, language, and cultural skills.
Yeah, I believe this is coming up now in your career, is that rather than put aside some part of you that's part of your DNA, that's part of your upbringing, that's your Japanese side, bring that in as part of your wonderful an ingredient. Like it's an ingredient that was missing from the cake that you baked, right? You've had a half cake and you haven't got the Japanese side. So tell me more about this. This is getting interesting.
Right. So until then, well, it got better after my oldest daughter was born, but I was kind of suppressing my Japanese-ness because it was not that relevant anyway in my day-to-day life. My ex-husband didn't speak Japanese, and he's white guy. And then, my work really didn't have a lot to do with Japan, although I had some Japanese clients, but my litigation work was all in English. So I was kind of de-emphasizing my Japanese-ness until then. Then my kids were born. I started hanging out more with Japanese friends. And then I was thinking, like it's almost like I had two different aspects of life, like being a professional, speaking English, and then I spend time speaking Japanese to my kids and, my like, mommy friends, right? And I was thinking it would be more interesting and rewarding if I, could be one whole self, like no matter where I am. So that's when I started thinking about working for a Japanese company, and I decided to talk to a friend of mine about it. And he was like, "Oh, okay. So why don't you contact so and so at this company?" And I happen to know that person because he used to be at that international firm I used to work at. He was a partner there who I thought retired, but I did some work with him. So I looked him up on the California State Bar website and got his email address, and I emailed him. Like, hey, do you remember me? And I was wondering if you have an opening at your company that's Christie Digital Systems, where I was at. And then he replied and he said, let's meet. So we met at a restaurant in Costa Mesa, and we probably spent like 2 hours catching up, had a nice lunch. And then he came back a couple of weeks later, said, okay, let's do a walk, like a 1 mile walk. It was like Saturday or Sunday morning. So we went to a golf course, and then we had a 1 mile walk, and then we had a nice brunch. And he told me that the CEO approved his request to hire another lawyer, and he was actually looking for a Japanese speaking lawyer. So that was a total coincidence.
That's fantastic.
Yeah,
What a
yeah,
story. So he's in the background there over the last 2 weeks before this 1 mile walk. He's already seeking approval to hire someone and he's got you in mind.
exactly. So yeah, so we had a nice lunch, nice walk, and then he invited me back to the company headquarters where he made me meet with the CEO and other people, and then he gave me an offer that day.
So hang on a minute. You have not actually sat down and had an official, and I'm doing speech marks around official interview. Your interview was already as you had lunch, on the walk. You've already been interviewing, and he kind of knew you from before. So no
Exactly.
official sit down in the office across the desk. You were having an interview as you walked and talked.
Right, because he had already decided that he would give me the job offer, but he wanted me to meet other people like the CEO,
Fabulous.
Jar, and then other, folks in the legal department. So yeah,
Oh, great story. Look at that. And I think in something I read about you, you talked about not burning bridges.
yes, that it's just so important. And of course, it's not my nature to, burn bridges with anybody, but also you always have to do your best. No matter what you do, legal work or volunteer work, do your best, 120%. And then people have a positive memory about you, and it can always serve you well in the future.
So right. They may not remember what you did, the 100% or the 120% work on. So they may not remember the project or anything like that, but they just remember you and that you endeavored that hard. And they remember
Right,
that as the feeling afterwards, right?
right. Yep.
Ah,
So,
so what happened? You started with this company. How was it?
right. So I started at Christie Digital Systems and spent Then I did a lot of work actually for the parent company in Japan, Ushio Inc., and also Christie's sister company, Ushio America, which is where I am now. And I did a lot of work speaking and writing Japanese, and that was really refreshing for me, being able to do work in my own language and then appreciate it. So I was at Christie Digital for 3 years. Then I decided, well, okay, well, I spent so much time doing work for the Ushio side. Ushio America is a sister company, and Ushio Inc. is the parent. But maybe I should move to Ushio America on a full-time basis and then become general counsel. At that time, I was assistant general counsel, so I actually approached the CEO to see if he would support that, and he said yes. I think he was still at Ushio America, and he approved it. So basically, I created my own position.
Okay, so I'm seeing a pattern here. When you were going to Christie, you asked. You looked him up on the California Bar Registry. You looked him up, you asked. And here you are again asking.
Yes.
Right?
So
Maybe this is bringing out some of the experience or the confidence that comes perhaps in living and experiencing America. Or what is it that helped you to do that?
I think it was yes, confidence that I got from living in a foreign country and overcoming some challenging situations. I felt like I could do anything as long as I put my mind to it, and if I can't figure something out, then I'll ask. So, and I felt like it would be only fair for me to become general counsel because I was basically in charge of legal matters for Ushio America and doing so much work for Ushio Inc. So I created my own position and moved.
Oh, I
And
love
then,
it. It's only
yeah,
fair. It's only
yeah,
fair for me to be
fair.
general counsel.
Right, right,
Absolutely.
right. So rather than, being assistant general counsel, though, because I was doing all the work. And then like something similar happened 3 years ago. I'm also serving as general counsel for Ushio Europe. And although I'm located in Southern California, I handle legal matters for Ushio Europe. They have a few locations in Europe. And that's something that I volunteered to do because I wanted to have more exposure to European legal matters. That because I was interested and I truly wanted to help, but I felt like it's really important for me to kind of create my own path. If it's not outside your own organization, then you can create different paths within the same organization, right?
Oh, yes, that's a good one, right? To create within the pathway that you're already in, the company
Right.
that you're in, where else can you do something within that organization?
Right. Yeah. So that's what I did with Ushio Europe.
Right.
So I just really enjoy working with people in Europe, US, Japan.
Lots of privacy matters, I would think, for Europe. And I think I saw somewhere in your bio that you also did a privacy qualification, perhaps to help with Ushio
Oh,
Europe.
so that was, yes, that was during COVID. I decided I should, because, we were all stuck in the house and not being able
Yes,
to travel. I thought, well, maybe I should spend weekends to study for the CIPP, Certified Information Privacy Professional certification.
fantastic.
So, yeah, so I took that. I studied and then got that certification during COVID.
Sure. And it tunes your mind into thinking about this in the front of your mind, right? Privacy matters. That would have certainly helped for Europe as well.
Right. Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely.
Well, I'm going to ask you this big question to finish a sentence for me. The most important thing I have learned in my career in law so far is.
To know yourself and be authentic. And it's not really directly related to the practice of law, but to be successful at it, you really need to know who you are and what's important for you, right? Your core values. Because, like, when I was having challenges at that law firm, there was a conflict between who I was and who I was trying to be. So I feel like it's very important for you to be authentic and take
Mm.
one whole self, no matter where you are at home or at work. And people can see through you if you are trying to be somebody else.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
You're so right. I love that. Thank you for that advice. It's really great. Now let's move to your pathway into other governance roles. I know
Yeah,
you're on the board of KA Imaging, and I think that's an internal director role. And you're also on the board of Fujitech. And I wanted to ask you about the pathways to getting to those roles. Tell me first about KA Imaging, and then let's move into Fujitech, because Fujitech is an incredible story.
right. Well, yes, K-imaging, that's kind of another example of creating my own path kind of situation.
Okay, we've got the heading, I think, for this one, Creating Your Own Path in the Law with Ako Shimada.
This one, so Ushio is a shareholder of this company. It's a small company in Canada. So Ushio always had a director on K-Imaging's board, but this person left Ushio. So Ushio headquarters, naturally they were going to send another guy to the board, but I told my CEO I was already like at that time interested in serving on corporate boards. So I told my CEO, well, this would be a great experience for me to have a board role here and I'll learn a lot. And would it be okay if I volunteer to do that? And he said, absolutely. Yeah. So he told Japan that I'm willing to serve on this company's board. And so that's how I got this position. That was in 2019. So it's about 5 years ago.
There you go. Again, you're asking for something. You're seeing a gap and you're kind of seizing that gap as you see it come up. And why should you have someone else be appointed? It's only fair that
Right.
you have that.
Right. So yeah, I told Japan because I'm already in the US, only just 3 hour time difference. I know corporate governance and compliance issues here in North America. And I know fiduciary duty and all the things that you have to be careful about. And it will be much easier for me to serve on their board than, some guy in Japan, right?
Exactly. You've got all the skills. You've got the skills, you've got the experience, you've got the knowledge. It would be silly to have anybody else there.
Right.
And you're still doing that role?
Yeah, I'm still on
Yeah.
their board. So that's my good first board experience because you have to start somewhere.
Yeah. So what do you think about that for others? Maybe they're opening their eyes, listening to this, thinking, oh, what around me am I not seeing? Where are the gaps? I'm not actually seeing a chance for me to ask for something and it will be okay. What's the worst that can happen when someone says, no, or not now, or thanks for letting us know, we'll let you know later when something comes up? What would you say? Would you just say, look, keep your eyes open and ask?
Yeah, and always let people know that you are interested in serving on corporate boards. Just always let people know. Otherwise, nobody will know, right? The opportunity, comes and you have to be ready. So even if you feel like you may be too young or too inexperienced, take some online courses, read the corporate governance code, understand the roles of corporate directors, go out, network, and let people know. And when opportunity knocks on the door, you be ready.
No one can read your mind either, right? So unless you tell people, they're not going to know. You can't just say, look, I'm around 50 or 60. People must be understanding I'm ready at this age to get a role like that or be invited. No, you've got to be vocal about it.
Right, right. And
Right.
it's better to start while you were still working full time than wait until you retire.
Yeah, fantastic. Great advice there. Take courses, read the corporate governance code, understand what it means to be a corporate director, and network yourself. Lovely. Okay, let's move to Fujitech. This is a TSE Prime listed elevator and escalator company. And I know it's really, really interesting because you were elected to that board in an EGM in February 2023, nominated by Oasis Management, who we really know all over the world as being an activist entity.
Right.
And there were other candidates nominated as well as you. So tell us about that experience, how you got to be nominated and that process.
Right. So honestly, at the point when I was contacted, I didn't know much about Oasis at all. It came through a recruiter,
Yeah.
and I was asked if I would be interested in being nominated by this activist to try to improve Fujitech's corporate governance. I said, okay, so at least I'll listen. So I had Zoom meetings with Oasis people, the founder and other people, and they explained what's going on. And of course, I did my own investigation about the company. That was in the fall of 2022. And I became strongly interested in being, part of it and at least tried to see if I could contribute because they were having some governance issues based on what I could find on the internet. And if I could be part of, enhancing their governance and improve their corporate value, then that'll be fantastic. So I agreed to be nominated. And over the course of next couple months, we did some investor calls, and we had to do Q&A sessions with institutional shareholders, retail shareholders, and then the extraordinary general meeting of shareholders was in February of last year, and it was very highly publicized because it was, I think, the first time in Japanese history where a big chunk of activist nominated candidates won and replaced the incumbents. So 5 of us got nominated by Oasis and 4 of us got elected. I was one of them. And then there were 6 incumbents, independent directors, and 3 of them lost their seats. And 1 resigned 3 days before the EGM. It was an interesting situation, to say the least.
Very hot. Very,
Yes.
very hot, right? Oh my
Yeah.
goodness.
Right.
How was it for you? Were you a little concerned, or were you kind of a little bit excited about this as you could see the heat building up as the EGM came closer and closer and people were, one person resigned and then you've got all this going on. How was it? How'd you feel?
So, I mean, it may have helped because I was physically removed, right, from Japan. I was in the US, right? So I think some people may be concerned, oh, this is just too stressful or like too much publicity. But, I'm in California, so if I lose, then so be it. Still a good experience.
That's a good point. That's a really
Yeah,
good point. And I just want to go back to, you mentioned having Q&A sessions with the
right.
investors. What was that? Was that them asking you questions about your views or opinions or where you would side with something? Is that what they were trying to verify with you?
There was about, so we did our own self introductions in the beginning, and there'll be questions about like what like I would think about their governance situation, what I would do based on my background, that type of thing. But of course, I only knew what I knew based on publicly available information, so I was very careful in my answers.
Right, of course. You could verify with them as well what was
Yeah.
in the media, because sometimes it's not accurate in the media.
Right. And then also what you can find on, the company's website, what they disclose.
Right. Wow. How's it been on the board? Have you got a mix of Japanese and non-Japanese on the board? Tell me. I should have done my
Right.
research beforehand, but I wanted you to tell me about this.
Yeah. After this election, before that, it was 100% Japanese folks. But now on the independent director side, we have 6, and 3 of us live outside of Japan, and 2 of us do not speak Japanese. And then 4 of us do speak Japanese, but 2 of the people who live in Japan, they are not Japanese, but they speak fluent Japanese, right? But then because there are 2 directors who do not speak Japanese, for meetings, we have to have a simultaneous translator, or not necessarily simultaneous, but we have to have a translator.
Yes.
And that can kind of slow things down, but it's possible.
And how do you think it is with you being a lawyer? How does it strengthen or help you to execute your board role in particular as a lawyer?
It definitely helps to have a legal background because a lot of things we do, we need to first clearly understand our duty as independent directors, our fiduciary duty, and how we consider all shareholders' interests equally.
Yes.
Right. I'm so used to reading different codes and regulations. So I read the company code of Japan, corporate governance code, different guidelines, and being able to analyze these laws and guidelines, because that's what I do, in my day job, really helps me. And then also, I've been in pretty stressful situations as being a lawyer. So it's very important for you to be calm and stay above the fray. And so, like being logical, analytical, and have calm temperament really helps.
Oh, yeah, I agree with you totally. You need to be extremely calm no matter what's going on, even if it's happening outside of the board or something impacting you. You've got to be really calm and collected, don't you?
Right. And then also because the governance was an issue, and I've been, doing a lot of compliance governance type work in my day job, right? So my experience really helps too. And being the general counsel of a foreign subsidiary of a Japanese company, I really understand the challenges that these Japanese manufacturers have. Challenges of, not always having visibility or control over foreign subsidiaries, because I'm on the other side, right? I'm seeing from outside in. So that perspective helps.
Yes, I'm sure it does. That's one of the tough ones, I think, for boards that are based in Japan, not being able to have full oversight, perhaps, of overseas.
Right.
Depends on reporting and all kinds of things. But for someone who was maybe aspiring for a role like you've got, what would you suggest that they do? You've mentioned networking, you've mentioned, being calm and collected once you're on the board and doing courses and, understanding the role. Is there anything else you could add to that?
Networking is very important. And also, you never know where the opportunity comes, right? So this Fujitech opportunity was completely unexpected.
Mm,
So, but that came from somebody I knew, and I always value connection with people and friendship. So I always try to stay in touch and have regular contacts, right? Because you never know what comes, and
I
you
agree
don't.
with you. Yeah.
Yeah, and I know that you do that too. You're
Yeah.
a great networker.
Yeah, I think it's sometimes people just cringe when they hear the word networking, but does that to you mean keeping in touch and valuing the friendship? Is that what it's about, networking?
For me, it's about helping others too, because I like to help others and I really don't expect anything in return. It's just part of me, good or bad, but I'm pretty stoic, right? So I don't expect a whole lot from others so that I don't get disappointed. Right? And I really enjoy helping other people and being resourceful. Then, something surprising could come.
Yeah, you're right. The low expectations on expectations. Don't
Yeah.
think, you be a giver, not a getter. If
Right.
something comes to you, fine, but otherwise, you're just there to help others. And I think that's where, if you do that, the universe sends you something back, like this amazing contact who
Right.
gave you the introduction, and you got the recruiter got hold of you. Amazing.
Right. And then one other thing I did during COVID, because I had nothing else to do, I decided to get this independent director training from the Japanese Association of Corporate Directors, called JACD, Nihon Torishimariaki Kyokai. But historically, they only did that training in person in their offices.
Right.
But then, and I asked even before COVID if it's possible for me to take that course online, and they said no, because they didn't have the proper equipment. And then COVID hit. So I contacted them again and do you still do training now? And despite COVID, and they say, yes, now we do this online. So I said, oh, great. So I signed up and then I took that course. It was over the course of, I think, 6 months, like once or twice a month. And then I got the certificate of completion from that training, corporate independent director training. And that was great because it was all in Japanese and learned Japanese laws and, different aspects of serving on corporate boards.
Good for you.
Yeah,
And is it still available online?
I think so.
I think so. I think it is. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it is.
Yeah, so I highly recommend that. And then, of course, there are many other courses available.
Wonderful. Well, if you were to sort of go back and give some advice to your younger self, what would that be? Now that you've gone through all of this and changed from being private practice to in house, you've got this successful in house director role and outside board role, it seems pretty good, and you've got a great family, and you've, brought yourself into your full self of giving your Japanese side and your US brought up side. What would you say back to your younger self?
I was a pretty quiet and kind of serious kid. I want to tell myself, like, you have more fun. Don't take things too seriously. But of course, like, I am who I am and where I am now because of like, how I kind of behaved and, my history. But yeah, I can tell myself, younger self, to have more fun and don't take it too seriously.
Yeah, a
Yeah.
bit of the seriousness has helped you to get where you are, but yeah, perhaps a little bit off the accelerator pedal of seriousness, and ease into a bit more fun. I love that. And anything else there on, maybe some people talk about your best and worst advice, and on a podcast we often ask these kinds of things. Is there anything standing out for you that was super excellent advice that you got, and some that was not so good?
So, yeah, as I said earlier in this interview, I got criticisms, right? So I don't know if that's what advice, but
Probably.
yeah, well, maybe because they said maybe you should do something other than litigation. But of course, you could try, but it depends on the market condition, right? So you may not get something what they tell you should get. But that was not necessarily the best advice I got. But a good advice I have received, maybe to be proud of myself because I tend to be very humble and I even don't like realize like how unique I am because I used to de-emphasize my Japanese-ness. And then actually it's like my current husband who encouraged me to kind of praise myself and look at yourself, like what you have accomplished. And so that was probably the best advice I received
Oh,
recently.
it's so good. Shout out to your husband for that great
Yeah.
advice. Yeah. Your
Yeah.
uniqueness is something you need to embrace. And when we push it away, I think you said before, people can sense something's not quite right there. You're not really being yourself. But I'm sure now, and even since I first met you online, I sense more of your genuine self coming out, which I just love seeing. I can't wait to see what happens.
Yeah, many people have said that.
Yeah.
Last couple of years, I went through a divorce during COVID, and it was very difficult. But I have become more like myself. Even my oldest daughter said that I've kind of discovered my inner self, and that was really touching to hear from my own daughter.
Oh,
It
isn't
was,
it?
yeah, it was a
Wow.
little speech she did at the wedding we had back in April. Yeah, that was really touching to hear my own daughter say that.
It's touching, isn't it? Because maybe you think parents or mums or dads have to give the advice, or that we are the ones helping, whereas actually it's coming from your children as well. They're seeing you, they're with you
Right.
every day, basically. So they see the changes in you as well. It's pretty obvious. It's very interesting and eye opening. Wow. Kudos to your daughter as well. Awesome.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. And then it has been difficult for them too because of the divorce. And they've had some mental challenges too. And I've learned a lot through therapy and whatnot to be a good listener, be patient, and then be vulnerable because they had only seen me being mom, who did everything, superwoman. It could be strict sometimes, but I really didn't show my emotion too much. But I've come to realize that actually they would appreciate my advice or conversation if I'm open and vulnerable. So my kids have taught me a lot, and I've become a more patient and better person and a better listener.
Fabulous. And I think too, there's that sometimes it's right to be vulnerable. Other times, Superwoman is super appropriate for the moment, right? You can be both,
Right.
depending what's
Yeah, I
happening.
had to be because no matter what, I have to get things done, right? So, sometimes I have
Absolutely.
stoic, but it's not sustainable. You cannot be stoic all the time. So,
Oh, fantastic. Is there
yeah.
anything today that we haven't covered that you wanted to mention that you were thinking about before the podcast, or anything else you'd like to reemphasize again, maybe in terms of some advice for young lawyers or law students or any women maybe in the community you'd like to give them some information as we finish up?
So this is the motto that I've been kind of living by in the last few years, but it's be sincere with your friends, other people, and then be honest with yourself. So like you have to be honest with yourself and know what you want. And then also always be sincere with other people.
Mm.
So that's my motto. I don't have any great sayings.
No, that's a great thing. I mean, that's a place to live your life by. Absolutely. I agree with you. Well, thank you, Ako. We're going to go into the quick final round. These are just some random questions that I love to finish up with. And I haven't asked this first question for a little while, but if I was to give you 1 million yen, if you were going to spend it, like
Yeah.
your favorite store or destination or some cause, anything,
Mhm.
what would you do with it?
I think I would travel to I've never been to Okinawa, so and stay at a nice resort. And maybe I'll go to Hokkaido too, because I've been to Hokkaido only once.
So you
So
go from warm and cold, right?
yeah, yeah, and
Fabulous.
explore it and have like a very nice onsen hotel or something.
Yeah, you deserve a break, it's only fair. I think that's also one of your great expressions. So, how about the second question here, which is can you share a book maybe that you've read or reading? Maybe it's even a podcast or a TED talk or something that you've listened to that you would recommend.
I don't have like one book, but I like Adam Grant and Malcolm Gladwell a lot. So any of their books I highly recommend.
Yeah, I think I've got about 3 Adam Grants.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, it goes, he's a psychologist, right?
Yeah.
So his research really resonates with me, and he's a great writer too.
Oh, wow. Okay. And if you were stuck on a desert island and you could bring one person, one item, what would that be?
I have 2 daughters, right? So I'd like to bring both of them, but
Okay, let's say we're bringing both daughters. Okay, so what would you bring as let's give 2 items then. We'll give you 2 items to bring.
2 items to bring.
Mm.
I don't know if I should bring my iPhone, but then I wouldn't be able to communicate with other people. So
What if it
that's,
wasn't your iPhone? Let's just pop that one away and think about what it might be.
yeah, then maybe like a gadget, the little thing that has like a knife and other
Yeah.
two in one, just to be practical.
I agree with you. It has to be a
Oh,
practical tool. You're going to have to cut something or
yeah.
yeah.
But
Yeah.
before that, I need to learn survival skills because, well, yeah, we will use less if you don't know how to use the.
So the other item is probably the guidebook on survival skills.
Yeah, exactly. Right. The book
Yeah.
and the tool.
What about something that others maybe don't know about you?
So I used to play drums in high school. So
Oh,
I was in a couple of bands, like we copied Japanese like pop, like a girls band, and then the Beatles, Janis Joplin. So I did that in high school, and then almost nobody knows about it.
wow. Maybe you want to meet Janis Joplin as the celebrity.
That's true, right?
Wow. You did drums. That's awesome. Have you got a
Yeah.
good singing voice as well?
Yes, some
Oh,
people say I'm a good singer. I like to sing, but since COVID, I haven't gone back to karaoke ever since. But I sing in
next
my
time.
car.
Next time you're in Japan.
Yeah, I definitely should do that.
Well, Ako, thank you so much for coming on the show today, for sharing your stories. I can tell now that we're closing up, you've really got a relaxed voice, and I hope you've enjoyed the show.
Oh, I enjoyed this so much. Thank you for
Oh,
inviting.
it's so
It was
good.
so much fun.
Well, thank you for sharing about the board roles, your growing up in yourself internally and externally, all these nuggets of advice and the way that you live your life. Thank you so much. If people would love to get in touch with you, where's the best place to do that? Is it LinkedIn?
Yeah, probably LinkedIn.
Okay, great. We'll put that link for your LinkedIn profile in the show notes. And so please do like this episode, share it with somebody else who you think would love to hear about Ako's story today. And you can also go on to Apple Podcasts or Spotify and leave us a review. That really helps for this episode to be seen and heard by other people. Thanks, everyone. We'll be back soon again. Cheers, kampai, and bye for now. Thank you so much for listening today to this episode of Lawyer on Air. I really hope that you were inspired by the story you heard and that you discovered something new about women in the law. Please subscribe to the show so that you don't miss future episodes. And if you can think of even just one person to share this episode with, that would make my day. I invite you to connect with me to talk more. Jump on over to LinkedIn or Instagram where you can find me, or send me a message via my website contact page. That's all from me today. I look forward to seeing you right here on the next episode of Lawyer on Air. Cheers, kampai, and bye for now.